She wondered if he was angry. Maybe he thought she had planned this. Maybe he thought she was some kind of opportunist. She opened her mouth to explain, but he spoke first. "Long day?" Lena blinked. That was not what she expected. "Yeah. End of quarter reporting. Everyone stays late." Evan nodded once. He understood that much. He had built this company from something small into something massive. She knew that from the company history they showed new hires during orientation. He had taken over after his father died. That was 15 years ago. Now Reed Group had offices in 9 cities. Lena had looked him up once out of curiosity. The internet said he was 42, widowed, no children, private. The rain drummed harder. Lena checked her app again. Still nothing. She felt trapped. Not by him. By the situation. By the weather. By her own bad luck. She cleared her throat. "I really am sorry about this. I saw a black car and just assumed." Evan finally looked at her. His expression was unreadable. "It happens." She did not believe him. People like him did not have strangers climb into their cars. People like him had drivers, but his car was empty except for the 2 of them. She wondered why he was driving himself. Maybe his driver was sick. Maybe he liked the control. She did not ask. Her phone buzzed. A notification. She grabbed it too fast and nearly dropped it. But it was just an email. Not a ride. She exhaled and set the phone on her lap. This was taking too long. She could feel the awkwardness building like pressure in a sealed room. She needed to say something. Anything. "Do you usually drive yourself?" Evan did not answer immediately. He seemed to be deciding whether the question was worth responding to. Finally, he said, "Sometimes, when I need to think." Lena nodded. She did not know what else to say. She stared at the dashboard. It was cleaner than any car she had ever been in. No receipts, no empty coffee cups, no clutter. Just the faint glow of the screen and the sound of rain. She tried her app one more time. The screen loaded, then crashed again. She wanted to throw the phone out the window. Evan shifted in his seat. He checked his watch. It was a simple design. No diamonds. No logo she recognized. Just metal and time. He looked at her again. This time his face had changed. There was something calculating in his eyes. Something that made her nervous. He spoke carefully. Each word was deliberate. "Can I ask you something?" Lena felt her stomach tighten. She did not know why. "Sure." Evan looked at her employee badge again, then at her face. He was deciding something. She could see it happening in real time. Finally, he said, "Do you have plans tonight?" Lena's heart skipped. She did not understand the question. Was he asking her out? That was impossible. She was nobody. He was Evan Reed. She must have misunderstood. "I was just going home." "Why?" Evan turned his body toward her. He rested one arm on the steering wheel. His tone stayed calm, but there was urgency underneath it. "I need a favor, a big one, and I'll pay you for it." Lena stared at him. She did not move. She did not breathe. This was not happening. "What kind of favor?" Evan did not look away. His voice stayed even. "I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend, just for tonight. A few hours. That's it." Lena felt the air leave her lungs. She must have heard him wrong. She waited for him to laugh, to say it was a joke, but he did not laugh. He just watched her with those cold, sharp eyes. She finally found her voice. It came out shaky. "Are you serious?" Evan nodded. "Completely." Lena's mind raced. This was insane. This was the kind of thing that happened in movies, not real life. Not to her. She shook her head. "I don't understand. Why would you need that? Why me?" Evan exhaled slowly. He looked out the windshield again. When he spoke, his voice was quieter. "My mother and some business partners set up a dinner tonight. They want me to meet someone. A setup. I've been avoiding it for months. But if I don't show up, it's going to create problems. Business problems. Lena tried to follow. So you need someone to go with you to make them stop pushing. Evan nodded. Exactly. If I show up alone, they'll just keep trying. If I show up with someone, they'll back off. At least for a while. Lena felt her pulse hammering in her ears. This was absurd. She was a mid-level analyst who could barely afford her rent. He was Evan Reed. She said the first thing that came to mind. Why not ask someone you actually know? A friend? Someone from your circle? Evan's jaw tightened. Because everyone in my circle talks. Word gets out, it becomes a thing. I need someone who won't make it complicated. Someone outside of all that. Lena stared at him. He was serious. Completely serious. She felt dizzy. This is crazy. Evan did not argue. I know, but I'm asking anyway. Lena looked down at her hands. They were shaking. She gripped her bag tighter. I can't. I'm sorry. This is too weird. I work for you. Technically. What if someone finds out? What if it affects my job? Evan's voice stayed calm. It won't. No one will know you work at Reed Group. And after tonight, we go back to normal. You'll never see me again. Lena shook her head. That's not how this works. People talk. Someone always talks. Evan reached into his pocket. He pulled out his phone and opened his banking app. He turned the screen toward her. She saw numbers. A lot of numbers. He typed something and showed her again. $20,000. Transferred tonight. Before we even leave this car. Lena's breath caught. She stared at the screen. $20,000. That was more than she made in 4 months. That was her credit card debt. That was 6 months of breathing room. That was everything she needed and could not ask for. She felt her resolve cracking, but she forced herself to think. What if something goes wrong? What if your family asks questions I can't answer? Evan put his phone down. They won't. You just need to be there. Smile. Act natural. I'll handle the rest. Lena closed her eyes. This was a mistake. She knew it. But $20,000. She thought about her landlord's last email. She thought about the bills stacked on her kitchen counter. She thought about the way her stomach twisted every time she checked her bank account. She opened her eyes and looked at Evan Reed. He was waiting. Patient. He knew what she was going to say before she said it. She spoke slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. Just tonight. A few hours. Then it's over. Evan nodded. Just tonight. Lena felt something shift inside her. She did not know if it was courage or desperation. Maybe both. She took a breath and said the words that would change everything. Okay, I'll do it. Evan pulled his phone back out. His fingers moved across the screen with the kind of speed that came from doing this 1,000 times. He did not ask for her account details. He just opened a notes app and slid the phone toward her. Put your information here. I'll transfer it now. Lena stared at the blank screen. This was real. This was actually happening. Her hands felt numb as she typed in her account number and routing information. She double-checked the numbers 3 times before handing the phone back. Evan glanced at the screen, then opened his banking app. She watched him type. A few seconds later, her phone buzzed in her lap. She picked it up with shaking hands. The notification read, "Deposit received." $20,000. Her vision blurred for a moment. She had never seen that much money in her account at once. She looked at Evan. He was already putting his phone away like this was nothing. Like he had not just changed her entire month, her entire year. She did not know what to say. Thank you felt wrong. This was not a gift. This was a transaction. Evan started the car. The engine was so quiet she barely heard it. He adjusted the mirrors and checked his watch again. We have about 40 minutes before we need to be there. That gives us time to go over a few things. Lena nodded. Her throat felt tight. Okay, what do I need to know? Evan pulled out of the parking spot and onto the street. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. The wipers moved in a steady rhythm. He spoke without looking at her. My mother's name is Catherine. She's direct. She'll ask questions. Just keep your answers simple. Don't volunteer extra information. Lena tried to remember. Catherine Reed. Direct. Simple answers. She repeated it in her head. What kind of questions? Evan turned onto the main road. Traffic was light. Most people had already gone home. Where you're from, what you do, how we met. Standard things. Lena felt her stomach twist. How did we meet? What should I say? Evan thought for a moment. Through work, we ran into each other at a company event. Started talking. Kept it quiet because of the professional conflict. Lena nodded. That sounded believable. She could work with that. How long have we been seeing each other? Evan glanced at her briefly. 2 months. Long enough to be serious. Not long enough for people to wonder why they haven't heard about you. Lena made a mental note. 2 months. She could do this. She had to do this. She had already taken the money. There was no backing out now. She looked down at her clothes. Black slacks and a simple blouse. Work clothes. Nothing special. Am I dressed okay for this? Evan's eyes flicked to her outfit, then back to the road. You're fine. It's not formal. Just dinner. Lena wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. People like Evan Reed did not do casual dinners. Everything was calculated. Everything meant something. She pulled down the visor and checked her reflection in the small mirror. Her makeup had faded. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked tired. She looked exactly like someone who had just finished a 10-hour shift. She flipped the visor back up and tried not to think about it. They drove in silence for a while. The city lights slid past the windows. Lena watched the streets change from commercial blocks to tree-lined avenues. The buildings got nicer. The cars got more expensive. She recognized the neighborhood. This was where people who made 7 figures lived. People who had drivers and housekeepers and personal assistants. People who did not ride the subway or worry about grocery bills. Evan turned onto a quieter street. The restaurant appeared ahead. It was small. Elegant. The kind of place that did not advertise because it did not need to. Evan pulled into the valet lane and put the car in park. Lena's heart started hammering again. This was it. No turning back. Evan turned to her. His expression was unreadable. One more thing. If anyone asks about your family or background, keep it vague. These people care about connections. Don't give them ammunition. Lena bristled. She understood what he meant, but it still stung. So I just lie about who I am? Evan shook his head. You don't lie. You just don't give them everything. There's a difference. Lena looked away. She wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. People like this judged. They measured worth in bloodlines and bank accounts. She was neither. She was just a girl who had climbed into the wrong car. She took a deep breath and reached for the door handle. Let's get this over with. Evan got out first. The valet appeared instantly. Evan handed over the keys without a word and walked around to Lena's side. She was already standing on the curb, smoothing down her shirt. Evan stopped next to her. He offered his arm. Lena stared at it for a second before looping her hand through. His arm was solid. Steady. He led her toward the entrance. The hostess recognized Evan immediately. She smiled too wide and gestured toward a private room in the back. Lena's stomach dropped. Private room. That meant fewer witnesses. That meant more scrutiny. They walked through the main dining area. It was beautiful. Soft lighting. Quiet conversation. The kind of place where even the silverware looked expensive. Lena tried to walk normally, but her legs felt stiff. The hostess opened a door. Inside was a long table. 6 people were already seated. Lena's breath caught. She had expected 2 or 3, not 6. Evan's hand moved to the small of her back, a gentle push. Keep going. They stepped inside. Every head turned. An older woman stood first. She was tall and thin with silver hair pulled into a neat bun. Her dress was dark blue and perfectly tailored. This was Catherine Reed. Lena could see the resemblance. Same sharp eyes, same controlled expression. Catherine's gaze moved from Evan to Lena and stayed there. Evan spoke first. His voice was calm. Mother, everyone, this is Lena Carter. Catherine's smile did not reach her eyes. Lena, what a surprise. Evan didn't mention he was bringing anyone. Lena felt the weight of that sentence. She forced herself to smile back. It was last minute. I hope that's okay? Catherine gestured to an empty chair. Of course, please. Sit. Lena sat down next to Evan. The other faces around the table were unfamiliar. 2 older men in expensive suits, a younger woman with perfect hair and a bored expression. Another man who looked like he spent more time in boardrooms than anywhere else. They all watched her like she was a specimen under glass. One of the older men leaned forward. His name tag said, Richard Brennan. So, Lena, how did you and Evan meet? Lena glanced at Evan. He nodded slightly. She turned back to Richard and kept her voice steady. Through work, we ran into each other at a company event a couple of months ago. Richard's eyebrows lifted. You work at Reed Group? Lena felt the trap before she stepped into it. If she said yes, they would ask questions. If she said no, they would wonder how she got into a company event. She chose her words carefully. I was there with a colleague. We started talking. It went from there. Richard nodded slowly. He did not look convinced, but he did not push. Catherine took over. She folded her hands on the table and tilted her head. And what do you do, Lena? Lena kept her smile in place. I work in analytics, data reporting mostly. Catherine's expression did not change. How interesting. And your family? Are they here in the city? Lena felt her chest tighten. She remembered Evan's warning. Keep it vague. Some of them. My mother lives upstate. I don't see her as much as I'd like. Catherine nodded. I see. And your father? Lena's throat went dry. She did not want to answer, but she had to. He passed away when I was young. The table went quiet for a moment. Catherine's face softened slightly. I'm sorry to hear that. Lena nodded. She did not trust herself to speak. Evan's hand moved under the table. His fingers brushed against hers. Not holding, just touching. A reminder. You're not alone. Lena took a breath and straightened her shoulders. The waiter arrived with menus. Everyone studied them in silence. Lena stared at the options without reading them. Everything was in French. She did not recognize half the words. She glanced at Evan. He leaned closer and pointed to something on the page. The salmon is good here, he said quietly. Lena nodded. That sounds perfect. The waiter took their orders and disappeared. The conversation picked up again. This time, it was about business, contracts, mergers, terms Lena barely understood. She stayed quiet and tried to look interested. Evan participated when necessary, but mostly he just listened. His hand stayed near hers under the table, not touching anymore, just close. The younger woman across the table finally spoke. Her name was Vanessa Hayes. She had been silent the entire time, just watching with those cold, calculating eyes. She set down her wine glass and looked at Lena. So, Lena, do you always go for men in positions of power? Or is Evan special? The table froze. Lena felt heat flood her face. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Vanessa smiled. It was not kind. I'm just curious. You seem so grounded. I wouldn't have expected Evan to go for someone so ordinary. Lena's hands clenched in her lap. ordinary. The word stung more than it should have, because it was true. She was ordinary. She was not rich. She was not connected. She was just a girl trying to survive in a city that did not care. She looked at Evan. He was staring at Vanessa with an expression that could cut glass. Before Evan could speak, Richard laughed. It was a low, dismissive sound. He looked at Lena like she was a child. "Come on, Vanessa. Don't be rude. I'm sure Lena is perfectly nice, even if this is just a phase." Lena's stomach dropped. A phase. That was what they thought. She was temporary. A placeholder until Evan found someone appropriate. Someone from their world. She felt something crack inside her. She had known this was fake. She had agreed to it. But hearing them say it out loud made it unbearable. She looked around the table. Catherine was watching her with a mix of pity and disappointment. The other men were smirking. Vanessa looked triumphant. And Evan. Evan just sat there. Silent. He was not defending her. He was not saying anything. Because what could he say? They were right. Lena pushed her chair back. The sound was loud in the quiet room. Everyone looked at her. She stood up slowly. Her legs were shaking, but her voice came out clear. "I need some air." Evan reached for her arm. "Lena!" She pulled away. "It's fine. I just need a minute." She walked toward the door without looking back. Her chest felt tight. Her eyes burned. She had made a mistake. $20,000 was not worth this. Nothing was worth this. She reached the door and yanked it open. The main dining room was still full of people eating and talking and living their lives like nothing was wrong. Lena kept walking. She passed the hostess stand and pushed through the front door. The night air hit her face. It was cold and damp and real. She stood on the sidewalk and tried to breathe. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Probably Evan. She did not check. Behind her, the restaurant door opened. Footsteps approached. She knew it was him before he spoke. Evan stopped a few feet away. He did not touch her. He just stood there. "I'm sorry. I should have said something." Lena turned around. Tears were running down her face now. She did not bother wiping them away. "Why didn't you? Why did you just sit there and let them talk about me like that?" Evan looked at the ground. For the first time all night, he looked uncertain. "Because I didn't know what to say. Because they're right. This is fake. You're not really my girlfriend. And they can see that." Lena laughed. It came out bitter. "So what? I'm just a tool to you. Something you bought for the night? Is that it?" Evan's jaw tightened. "That's not fair." Lena stepped closer. Her voice was shaking now. "Fair? You want to talk about fair? You brought me here, knowing exactly what they would think, knowing they would look down on me. And you didn't care. Because it doesn't matter. After tonight, I go back to being nobody." Evan looked at her, really looked at her. His eyes were not cold anymore. They were something else, something she could not name. He opened his mouth to speak, but Lena held up her hand. She was done listening. She turned and started walking. She did not know where she was going. She just needed to move. Behind her, she heard Evan call her name. She did not stop. She kept walking until his voice faded into the sound of traffic and rain. Lena made it 2 blocks before she stopped. Her feet hurt. Her chest hurt. Everything hurt. She stood under a streetlight and tried to catch her breath. The rain had stopped completely. The pavement was still wet and reflected the lights from passing cars. She pulled out her phone. The rideshare app was working now. She could order a car. She could go home. She could forget this entire night ever happened. But she could not move. Something kept her rooted to the spot. She looked back toward the restaurant. It was small from this distance, just another building in a row of expensive buildings. But inside that room were 6 people who thought they knew her, who thought they could measure her worth in seconds, who thought she was nothing because she did not have the right last name or the right background, or the right anything. And she had let them. She had walked away without saying a word. She had proven them right by running. Lena closed her eyes. She thought about the $20,000 sitting in her account. It was real money, life-changing money. But it felt dirty now, like payment for letting herself be humiliated, like a prize for knowing her place. She opened her eyes. The restaurant was still there, waiting. She could walk away. No one would blame her. She had every right to leave. But something in her chest was burning, not anger. Something clearer than that. She had spent her whole life being told she wasn't enough, not smart enough, not rich enough, not connected enough, and she had believed it. She had made herself small to fit into spaces that were never meant for her. But tonight was different. Tonight, she had a choice. She could walk away and let them win. Or she could go back and say what needed to be said. Not for Evan. Not for the money. For herself. Lena turned around and started walking back toward the restaurant. The hostess looked surprised when Lena walked through the door again. "Miss Carter, is everything all right?" Lena did not answer. She walked straight toward the private room. Her hands were shaking, but her steps were steady. She reached the door and pushed it open without knocking. 6 heads turned. Evan was back in his seat. He looked tired. Catherine was mid-sentence, talking about something Lena did not care about. Everyone went silent. Lena stepped inside and closed the door behind her. She did not sit down. She stood at the end of the table and looked at each face. Richard, Vanessa, Catherine, the others, whose names she had already forgotten. She took a breath and spoke. Her voice was clear, stronger than she expected. "I'm not here because I need to be chosen. I'm not here because I need Evan's money or his status, or anything else you think I'm after. I'm here because he asked me to be, and I said yes. That's it." Vanessa's mouth opened slightly. Richard leaned back in his chair. Catherine's expression did not change, but her eyes narrowed. Lena kept going. "You can think whatever you want about me. You can decide I'm ordinary or temporary, or whatever makes you feel better. But I'm not going to stand here and let you treat me like I'm less than human just because I don't come from your world." She looked at Evan. He was staring at her, like he was seeing her for the first time. She turned back to the table. "If I'm here as a person who has value, not as a prop, not as a face. And if that's not acceptable to you, then I'll leave. But I'm not going to apologize for who I am." The room was silent. No one moved. Lena felt her heart hammering, but she did not look away. She had said what she needed to say. Now it was up to them. Catherine was the first to speak. Her voice was cold. "You have a lot of nerve coming back in here and—" Evan stood up. The sound of his chair scraping the floor cut Catherine off mid-sentence. He looked at his mother, then at Richard, then at Vanessa. His voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath it. "She's right. All of you have been rude and condescending since the moment we walked in. And I sat here and let it happen because I thought keeping the peace was more important." Catherine's face went pale. "Evan," Evan held up his hand, "I'm not finished. You wanted me here tonight because you thought you could control who I see and how I live my life. You thought you could pressure me into doing what you want. But I'm done with that. I'm done pretending that your approval matters more than treating people with basic respect." Richard stood up. His face was red. "You're making a mistake. This girl is nobody. She's going to cost you—" Evan's voice cut through like a blade. "She has a name, and she's worth 10 of everyone in this room combined, including me." Lena felt something tighten in her chest. Evan looked at her. His expression was different now, softer. "I'm sorry I didn't say that earlier. I should have." Lena did not know what to say. Evan turned back to the table. "This dinner is over. Don't contact me about setups again. Don't contact me about who I should be seeing or who's appropriate. I'll make my own decisions from now on." He walked toward Lena and stopped next to her. He did not touch her. He just looked at her like he was asking permission. Lena nodded once. They walked out together. The door closed behind them. The main dining room was quieter now. Most of the tables were empty. The hostess looked confused as they passed. Evan handed the valet ticket to the attendant without a word. They stood on the curb in silence. The air was cold and clean. Lena could hear her own breathing. After a moment, Evan spoke. "I meant what I said in there." Lena looked at him. "About what?" Evan met her eyes. "About you being worth more than everyone in that room. I should have said it sooner. I should have walked out the first time they disrespected you." Lena shook her head. "You didn't have to. This was just a job. A transaction. You don't owe me anything." Evan frowned. "It stopped being just a transaction the moment they treated you like that. I brought you into this. That makes it my responsibility." The valet pulled up with the car. Evan opened the passenger door and waited. Lena climbed in. The interior was exactly the same as it had been 2 hours ago, but everything felt different now. Evan got in and started driving. The streets were emptier. The city felt quieter. Lena stared out the window and tried to process what had just happened. After a few blocks, Evan spoke again. "Where do you live?" Lena gave him her address. It was on the other side of the city, a neighborhood where the buildings were older and the rent was cheaper. Evan did not comment. He just drove. The silence between them was not uncomfortable.